Hello, everyone. I am the Outspoken Realist, and today I'm going to respond to the Amazing Atheist's video, Nuance is Dead and SJWs Piss on Its Grave. First off, I have no problem with anything in the video. It's not just a good video, it's a great video, and I'll link it in the description. You should probably watch it before watching this if you haven't already. My problem with it is what's not in the video. As the title suggests, TJ goes after SJWs and makes great points about how they're basically allergic to nuance, in the same way people like me are allergic to bullshit. TJ makes this really well thought out argument tearing apart SJWs, but leaves a glaring hole. Everything he says applies to the anti-SJW movement as well. There is this huge, blatantly obvious problem in the skeptic community that nobody is talking about. It's bubbling under the surface and everyone is just ignoring it. And again, that problem is that the anti-SJW movement is becoming just as toxic as the SJW movement. And I could sum that up with one perfect example that addresses the heart of the issue. SJWs will automatically label you as a sexist, racist, misogynist, etc., just for saying something that challenges their narrative. On the other hand, anti-SJWs will automatically label you as a regressive, Muslim apologist, or even an SJW just for saying something that challenges their narrative. The anti-SJWs are becoming a mirror image of the SJW movement. If you say something that challenges either of their narratives, they automatically strawman you as the extreme opposite. Anti-SJWs are just as opposed to nuance as the SJWs are. Now, I'm an anti-SJW, TJ's an anti-SJW as well, but this doesn't apply to us because we're moderates. I'm talking about the hardcore far-right anti-SJWs, like AIU, Live Life, and the thousands of morons that follow those assholes. I'd say people like me, TJ, Sargon, Mundane Matt, Repsion, Paul's Ego, Thunderfoot, etc., I'd say we're all moderates. Steve Shives is at the far left, and AIU and his fans are at the far right, but they think they're moderate, and that's a problem. I see too many right-wing so-called liberals pretending to be moderates when they spew the same hateful rhetoric as the far right and use the same dirty tactics as the far left. For example, just like feminists like Anita Sarkeesian criticize non-existent sexism in video games, so-called skeptics are criticizing non-existent feminist propaganda in movies.
Alright, so why I walked out of Star Wars The Force Awakens. Politically correct, feminist, female empowerment propaganda.
What happens when girls watch the new Star Wars film? Nowhere is it portrayed that girls need to work hard to acquire skills. Rey, on the other hand, she's a woman, see, she merely has to frown for 5 or 10 seconds in order to master the Force. Now this is a very toxic and dangerous message to give to girls. Excellence is hard work. It is not just immediately granted to those accidentally in the possession of budding breasts.
I mean, these same people point out how ridiculous it is when feminists see non-existent sexism and patriarchy everywhere, but are so paranoid about feminism that they're starting to see non-existent feminism everywhere. They're so scared of feminism that they equate a strong female lead in a good movie to feminist propaganda. It's absurd. Both of these groups are making issues out of nothing. Just like the whole Oscar diversity bullshit, there is a lot of smoke but no fire. And just as SJWs push this narrative that this is racist and that is racist, anti-SJWs like Live Life accuse people of promoting hatred against whites just for saying that if those militiamen who took over that wildlife refuge in Oregon were Muslim, they'd all be killed. And that's what these anti-SJWs have in common with the SJWs the most. They get offended when you point out facts and reality. Just like a true regressive gets uncomfortable and slanders people as racists for pointing out that blacks commit more crime or that Islam is barbaric, these regressive anti-SJWs slander people as racist against whites or having white guilt when they say something that challenges their bigoted agenda. Live Life says people who made that hypothetical comparison about the Oregon standoff promote hatred against the whites. Live Life called me a regressive Muslim apologist for saying right-wing terrorists killed more people than Muslim terrorists since 9/11, which is true according to this graph. Just like real regressives or Muslim apologists who accuse me of being a racist or bigoted, these regressive anti-SJWs also have no evidence to back up their ridiculous claims. And when you actually try to have a conversation with these people, they run away with their tails between their legs because they realize that you aren't what they slandered and strawmanned you as, and don't want to admit that they were wrong and keep wanting to live their fantasy where they're right about everything and anyone who challenges them is just a PC regressive Muslim apologist. Yeah, just throw a bunch of false labels at someone instead of addressing their fucking arguments. Typical SJW tactic. And again, these hardcore anti-SJWs act no different from the SJWs. They don't want a discussion, and they just want this authoritarian system where you're either with them or against them.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will do what I must.
This is becoming a huge problem that a growing number of people in the skeptical community aren't actual skeptics and do the same exact shit we all criticize SJWs for doing. It's called fucking hypocrisy. I'm not saying TJ is wrong. I'm saying that people like TJ should stop pretending that SJWs are the biggest threat while simultaneously ignoring the threat of the anti-SJWs. I'm saying the leaders of our skeptic community should start acting like skeptics and call out the anti-SJWs for using the same tactics they criticize SJWs for using. For example, anti-SJWs rightfully criticized Ben Affleck for incorrectly pulling the racist card on Real Time with Bill Maher. We always say that racist calling is just a way to shut down discussion. Well, what the hell do you call it when anti-SJWs shut down discussion by dismissing their opponent by strawmanning them as a regressive or a Muslim apologist? I've gotten plenty of comments from so-called skeptics calling me a regressive with no evidence to back it up, and they can never tell me why without putting words in my mouth. For example, when a certain YouTuber said black people should stop committing crimes, and people tried explaining to him that there are causes to black crime, they were dismissed as white guilt-ridden regressives who were making excuses for criminals. Again, these people hate nuance. It's either you agree that blacks should just stop committing crimes, or you're aggressive. When I said that it's wrong to persecute innocent Muslims, I was called a Muslim apologist and was sent pics of ISIS beheading people and told these were the people I was defending when I clearly said innocent Muslims. Again, it's either you agree that all Muslims are bad or you're just a Muslim apologist. This non-skepticism, tribalism, and bigotry has no place in the skeptic community. And we're only welcoming these cunts with open arms because they're critical of SJWs. Well, guess what? SJWs are a joke. No sensible person takes Steve Shives seriously anymore. He's the biggest SJW name in the skeptic community, and barely anybody even listens to him anymore. And if you go to channels in the feminist SJW community, you see a shitload of dislikes because most people see through their bullshit. The skeptic community suddenly loves this Milo guy just because he's critical of feminism and SJWs, but ignore the fact that he has a proven anti-science record. We hate feminists and SJWs this much. We hate these clowns so much that we're willing to stand side by side with people just as bad, if not worse, just to defeat them. All I'm saying is that if people like TJ and Sargon are going to attack SJWs, they should attack anti-SJWs who are no different than the SJWs they oppose. These anti-SJWs think they're different from the SJWs because they're on the opposite side of the horseshoe. In reality, they're just as bad and just as extreme, and we need to call them out, and I'm tired of being the only one doing so. If we attack SJWs for their fallacious arguments, tribalistic mentality, toxic ideologies, and promotion of censorship, then we should attack anti-SJWs when they do the exact same thing, but for some reason, we don't. That needs to change right now. Anti-SJWs like to talk about the ostrich brigade. Well, the skeptic community is the ostrich brigade in this instance since they all have their heads buried in the sand and don't want to talk about the elephant in the room. That elephant being anti-SJWs who are no different than SJWs. Stop being inconsistent in what you criticize and start acting like real skeptics. If you agree with me, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and consider supporting me on Patreon. Still looking into getting a new microphone. Have a good day, everyone.